Bueno, vamos a dar un par de minutitos para admitir a todos y comenzamos. Muy buenos días a todos los que hoy nos acompañan, tanto en Zoom como en la transmisión de YouTube. Antes de comenzar, les quiero solicitar a todos que mantengan sus micrófonos apagados, así como también quienes deseen o necesiten la traducción simultánea, por favor activarlas en el menú de abajo de la reunión de Zoom, al lado de grabar pantalla. Hoy, a través de nuestras redes y de la Escuela de Medicina Veterinaria UC y de la Pontificia Universidad Católica, damos inicio al ciclo de charlas Conservación y médicos veterinarios del futuro. 6 charlas que se realizarán en los próximos meses en compañía de destacados investigadores a nivel internacional. Ahora le doy la palabra al director de la Escuela de Medicina Veterinaria, doctor Víctor Cubillos.
Gracias, Paz. Bueno, buenos días a todos. Un gusto de poder saludarlo y que efectivamente nos acompañen en este ciclo de charlas que estamos dando inicio hoy día. Primero quiero saludar a nuestras autoridades, de igual manera a nuestros alumnos de la Escuela de Medicina Veterinaria de la Pontificia Universidad Católica y de otras facultades amigas del país. Un saludo a los colegas y profesores también de nuestra universidad y, lógicamente, a los colegas que hoy día nos acompañan de diversos países latinoamericanos, de Estados Unidos, de Europa. Gracias también, para nosotros es muy estimulante que ustedes nos acompañen hoy día, es un respaldo. Y finalmente quiero hacer un saludo muy particular a nuestros conferencistas, ¿cierto? Es un agrado para mí hoy día tener al profesor Alex Rubel con nosotros, un destacado investigador, científico, en fin, con una vasta experiencia en temas de conservación y biodiversidad. Bueno, junto con saludarlo a ustedes, quiero comentarles que nuestro ciclo de charlas, que hemos denominado Conservación y médicos veterinarios del futuro, se van a realizar durante el presente año. Vamos a irlos de alguna manera recordándoselo todos los meses para que nos puedan acompañar y destacar que el objetivo principal de esta charla tiene que ver con un interés muy particular de la Escuela de Medicina Veterinaria, que es ampliar la visión de nuestros estudiantes en el ámbito de las ciencias veterinarias y ciertamente mostrarles la importancia que tiene la conservación y la biodiversidad. Bueno, esta invitación que hemos hecho, no solo la hemos hecho a gente de nuestra universidad, sino que a distintas facultades de medicina veterinaria, distintas instituciones del país, de otros países. Hay organizaciones muy importantes en temas de conservación a nivel latinoamericano, hay varias instituciones nacionales hoy día y obviamente zoológicos. Bueno, para terminar este pequeño saludo, decirles que esta actividad es un esfuerzo conjunto entre la Universidad Católica, nuestra Escuela de Medicina Veterinaria, y la Foundation for International Aid to Animals, que denominamos FIA. FIA está en nuestro país, en Chile, por más de 20 años. Es una fundación que tiene que ver con el bienestar animal, en términos muy generales, pero ha realizado una gran actividad en Chile, fundamentalmente realizando campañas de vacunación, esterilización de mascotas y todo lo que tiene que ver con algo que para nosotros es muy relevante, que es la tenencia responsable de mascotas. Bueno, por último, destacar que FIA también, uno de sus grandes objetivos, guarda relación con la protección de las especies. Yo los dejo, quiero agradecer la presencia a usted y voy a dejar a mi colega y amigo Cristian von Reise, CEO y director para América Latina de FIA, quien realizará también un saludo para todos nosotros. Cristian, por favor.
Buenos días a todos y en especial muchas gracias, Víctor, por la introducción. Es un placer, a nombre de FIA, dar comienzo a este ciclo de charlas con un gran expositor como es el doctor Alex Rubel de Suiza, un apasionado, y no solamente un veterinario, sino que apasionado toda su vida por la conservación. Agradecer a todos la presencia hoy día que están acompañándonos en esta charla, y este es el comienzo de un ciclo de charlas que va a durar todo este año 2021, entender algo tan fundamental en esta situación de pandemia, que conservación es la clave para el futuro de este planeta. Los seres humanos hoy y siempre tienen que darse cuenta que es el medio ambiente, la biodiversidad en ese medio ambiente, lo que da la posibilidad al ser humano de vivir en forma plena. Entonces, frente a eso, es importante aprender desde los expertos nacionales e internacionales todo este concepto que es un poco a veces difícil de entender, pero si como seres humanos entendemos que la conservación, de la protección de las especies que nos ayuda a nosotros a vivir, vamos a salir adelante no solamente de esta pandemia, sino que ya podemos subsistir en este planeta en forma armónica. Así que una bienvenida a todos, espero que se sigan sumando estos sábados, que van a ser los sábados más entretenidos que puedan tener al mes, a través de este ciclo de charlas, que ha sido un trabajo en conjunto. Hay mucha gente para agradecer esta mañana, pero me quiero concentrar en el doctor Ares Ruibel, al cual va a hacer una presentación la doctora María Superina, quien es experta en Senartras en forma internacional y quien es también nuestra advisor en Conservation Training of FIA. Adelante, Mariela.
Buenos días a todos. Es un honor para mí poder presentar al primer disertante de este ciclo de charlas, el doctor en medicina veterinaria Alex Ruibel. Nacido en Zúrich, en Suiza, el doctor Ruibel trabajó durante 10 años como médico veterinario y docente de la Facultad de Medicina Veterinaria de la Universidad de Zúrich, donde se especializó en medicina de animales exóticos. En el año 1991 se convirtió en el director del zoológico de Zúrich, donde puso en práctica una nueva visión orientada a la conservación e implementó una nueva estrategia y un plan maestro que convirtió a esta institución cultural en una mediadora de la estrecha relación humano-animal, en una embajadora para la conservación de especies y sus hábitats, y en un centro de excelencia en temas de conservación relacionado con la fauna silvestre. Bajo esta estrategia desarrolló nuevos recintos para una amplia gama de especies y de comunidades de especies. La pieza central de esta nueva filosofía fue la selva tropical de Mazuala. El pabellón de Mazuala no solo una exhibición de animales, sino que muestra la interdependencia de los humanos y la naturaleza. El proyecto de la selva tropical de Mazuala, en el zoológico de Zúrich, trabaja en estrecha cooperación con el Parque Nacional de Mazuala en Madagascar, lo cual es un ejemplo de las nuevas formas de desarrollo para todos los zoológicos del mundo. El doctor Ruibel también estaba convencido de que los resultados de conservación solo pueden lograrse mediante una estrecha colaboración entre muchas organizaciones diferentes y más allá de las fronteras nacionales, por lo cual asumió como presidente de la Asociación Mundial de Zoológicos y Acuarios e inició estrategias de conservación más eficientes en muchos zoológicos. Por su trabajo fue galardonado en el 2006 con el premio anual de la Fundación Suiza de Ética y Cultura y en el 2012 con el premio Heini Hediger de la Asociación Mundial de Zoológicos y Acuarios. El título de su charla de hoy es One Plan Approach in Exotic Animal Medicine and Conservation, el enfoque de plan único en la medicina y conservación de animales silvestres. Disfruten mucho de esta charla de un muy destacado disertante. Alex, herzlich willkommen und wir freuen uns auf den Vortrag.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Marilla. Mr. Director Kuvilos and Director Van Rijtse, I'm very pleased to be speaking to you today, made possible through Mariella, which we have just heard, one of my students long time ago. She's a specialist for armadillos. I'm speaking from afar. Also, I must admit that I would even rather be with you now in Chile and have the opportunity to visit the Chilean huemul or the Humboldt penguins, which I have dealt with a little bit during my career. Let me now get... so that you know who you are dealing with. I grew up in the city of Zurich and volunteered at the zoological garden, then studied veterinary medicine at the university here, did my PhD there, and worked and taught at the exotic animal clinic for 10 years before becoming director of the Zoo Zurich for the last 30 years. Clinical work has always given me great pleasure. And our clinic for big cats, elephants, mice, parrots, reptiles, and others soon became a European leader and well known for the specialty of exotic species. Nevertheless, my interest was different. I wanted to work for the animal world and nature far beyond the individual. As a veterinarian, you only ever get to the patient when it's already burning. You have to heal, but often you come too late for efficient prevention. With these thoughts in mind, I applied for the position of zoo director in the hope of being able to do more prevention here. Today, I'm convinced that both human and animal health and the protection of wildlife and the wider natural world can only be successful if we take a more comprehensive approach to conservation. This brings us to the title of my talk today, One Plan Approach in Exotic Animal Medicine and Conservation. Let's see. Well, oops, yeah. As a veterinarian, we are of course closest to the individual patient, but especially with animals we are less familiar with than dogs and cats. It becomes apparent that the cause of disease is often much more complex than an infection or an injury. A veterinarian for exotic animals must therefore first and foremost master the art of arriving at the diagnosis in all the different animal species. It is not only the physiology of an animal that is crucial for the development of a disease, but also its behavior, its diet, and natural habitat. A comprehensive assessment of an animal's entire environment is needed. Let me illustrate that with some examples in behavior, nutrition, or environment. Examples in the behavior field. In Switzerland, camelids are also considered wild animals. One day a llama was presented, giving a sound when it urinated. Our equine veterinarians believed it was pain in the urinary tract, but these vocalizations are also a sign of a normal marking behavior in males of the species. Again and again, private breeders claimed that their Australian budgies, the little bird, did not breed. It is important to know that this species begins to breed spontaneously after the first rains of the year. If the rain is not stimulated in an enclosure, the reproductive success is much lower. An example in the area of nutrition. In various animal species, such as the South American vizcachas or the Madagascar mouse lemurs, which were kept in a mixed exhibit with other animals, we noticed increased lenticular opacity. This disease was clearly caused by the food. In mixed exhibits, the animals had access to a lot of fruit and thus to a diet too rich in carbohydrates and sugar for the species. We are able to define this as the cause of the lentil opacities, and with the appropriate access on the restrictions, we were able to remedy it immediately. And examples in the field of the environment. In the enclosure of our geladas, animals repeatedly died of cardiomyopathy, as we see in other animals with a selenium deficiency. Young animals rarely appeared. However, treatments of the animals with selenium had hardly any positive effects. We then built, as you see here, a spacious new enclosure with heavily overgrown natural soil for this group of animals. From one day to the next, the phenomenon disappeared. Also, we are still not fully sure why. But also in the case of the maned ibis, you see here to the right, and bee eaters, they immediately behaved more naturally and reproduced as soon as they were offered a very natural habitat. What follows from these examples? Even if we have individually diseased animals, the factors that lead to the disease are often external, especially in exotic animals. That's why it's important, especially with species we don't know as much about as with our pets, that we keep them very close to nature. When we talk about One Health, it's not only about exotic animals and their environment, it is about the health of all animals, humans and the environment, which are all interconnected. In 2017, the Robert Koch Institute in Germany analyzed bacteria samples from 400 door handles in 136 airports from 59 countries and tested them for antibiotic resistance. Not only did they find countless pathogenic strains, but also many that were antibiotic resistant and came from all over the world. Success in combating zoonosis requires the cooperation of several disciplines in addition to human and veterinary medicine. Since viral diseases, in particular, are relatively species-specific, may be completely asymptomatic in some species, but can cause diseases in others, zoos play an important role in identifying possible zoonosis. All three recent pandemics originated from normal viruses. The first two from bats. In 2003, SARS transferred to humans via a camel, MERS via a civet cat, and now COVID-19 possibly from bats to humans, maybe by a pangolin. Zoos that continuously monitor their populations can play an important role in diagnostics and research. It is no coincidence that we have positive detections of COVID-19 now in big cats in the zoos, for example, in New York, Barcelona, Prague, Knoxville, Louisville, or in Sweden, where a tiger even died from COVID-19. And great apes were affected in the San Diego and the Prague Zoo. Then there are massive infections, as you know, in mink colonies. Also, we know now that dogs and cats can also get COVID-19. More cases are known in zoo animals than in the much more common pets, simply because the health of zoo animals is controlled much closer. In the 1980s, HIV spread among humans. The transfer was suspected to be due to the consumption of infected monkey meat in Africa. We kept a large group of African pygmy monkeys, the talapoins, as you see here, at Zurich in the 1980s. They reproduced regularly, but many died at a relatively young age from various diseases, but some had enlarged lymph nodes. We got to the bottom of it and found a simian AIDS virus, which was not closely related to the human one. The news triggered, anyway, the press coverage further afield. Further research showed that this virus also belongs to this species in the wild and is found almost in all individuals of this species. Nevertheless, in our globalized world, One Health can help to detect possible zoonosis at an early stage. Another topic that we can no longer look at in isolation is genetic health. For this purpose, the variables of a population need to be assessed, as you see here, the fertility depression, the decline in juvenile viability, the overall genetic variability, heterozygosity of the individual in animals, number of founder animals, the size of the total population of a species, sex ratio, and the number of generations. The population size of many endangered species has become so small that species conservation programs in zoos and those in the wild need to be brought together in a one-plan approach to efficiently conserve a species, something that has only been recognized in recent years, even by the IUCN. Zule had already published a theoretical basis for the conservation breeding programs, which show how great the danger of extinction of an isolated population is. If the number of individuals of a species falls below a certain number, on average 500 interbreeding animals. The diagram you see here shows the development of a population with an initial population of 20 founder animals. Here you see N. N are the number of animals, which first increases, as you see, then decreases from the 10th generation onwards. S is the survival probability, which remains constant at first, but then decreases rapidly. H shows heterozygosity, and M, the percentage of males, here in the middle, growing, which in mammalian terms increases with inbreeding, when the inbreeding is increasing. Out of that, based on these principles, zoos have defined the following objectives for their conservation breeding programs. The goal is to maintain 90% of the genetic diversity over 200 generations, other in species with larger generation terms over 100 years. With 15 founder animals, an effective population of 500 individuals is theoretically necessary. Island populations do not only exist on islands, but also by dispersing to individual disconnected habitats in the wild. A good example of this is individual cat species. It is therefore not surprising that we find low heterozygosity and increased inbreeding in cats, like here in the snow leopard. Colobomas, here down on the left, bladder diverticula, above the coloboma, then the cleft palate, hip joint dysplasia, and heart malformations have been shown. In a one-plan approach of zoo and wild animal populations of a conservation breeding program, island population can be merged, which can significantly increase heterozygosity and the survival of the species. Zoological gardens have always pursued the following objectives. They wanted to be a place of recreation for people, a place where visitors could educate themselves, learn about animals and nature, where research was carried out with a view to conserving animals and nature, and where people were actively involved in nature conservation. With globalization and the destruction of the environment, the importance of the last goal has taken on even greater significance. I'm convinced that the conservation goal can also only be optimally achieved if the animal programs and facilities at the zoo, education at the zoo, and in the animal's area of origin, and conservation measures in the area of origin go hand in hand. The WASA conservation strategy, WASA is the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, implies that the zoos become conservation centers which link our visitors to endangered species and habitats in the wild and have a measurable conservation impact, dedicating 5% of annual zoo budgets to the cause. Let me first make sure that I'm fully convinced that if a zoo wants to be a leading conservation organization, it can only do that if its standards of keeping animals are at the highest level, as well as the institutions dealing with all the environmental issues, like their energy, sustainable food in the restaurants, and waste management. It was a priority for me in my time to bring the institution to CO2 neutrality, which is the case now for 8 years. It would go too far in this talk to get into details how we reached this goal. I will get back to the way we liked to achieve our in situ conservation goal. There are several ways to achieve this goal. Zurich Zoo has chosen a long-term approach with 8 different species and habitat projects for Mazoala National Park in Madagascar, for the Antarctica, Asian elephants, Sumatran orangutan, Colombian frogs, Kenyan rhinos and grevy's zebras, endangered Australian marsupials, and Swiss bats, as you see here on this scheme. Conservation starts with sensitizing visitors for the causes of extinction and habitat destruction, as well as methods of conservation in the field. They are involved in conservation stories and fundraising for the projects. Enclosures, education, and presentations are all linked to the field projects. In these field projects, all the in situ conservation is imposed after discussion and input from the zoo by the local stakeholders and with local active NGOs familiar with cultural and political customs. The long-term approach of the projects has brought a better visibility and understanding of the zoo visitors for conservation. In their view, the zoo has become a real conservation center. The same is true for the human population in situ, who see the zoo as a reliable partner, even in difficult local situations. Long-term knowledge of the zoo staff involved has also led to legal impact for conservation. As a result, this approach has proven to be quite successful. Maximum effects could be achieved by the projects bringing a win-win situation to everybody involved. The Mazoala project at Zurich was outlined to achieve this target. It is named and connected to the Mazoala National Park in Madagascar. You see here a picture from outside and inside the forest. It was our goal to tell our visitors a real story, to link the habitat, the animals, and plant species programs from the wild and the zoo together. Our efforts had also to have an input into conservation for an endangered habitat. We built the Mazoala rainforest as a breathtaking showcase and included a canopy walk as a wonderful experience for the visitors in the upper part of the forest. We show fascinating animals like the maned ibis, the panther chameleons, and many others, which breed naturally in the exhibit. They inspire people, get their attention, and will help to get them understand the functioning of a forest system. There is not just free walking in the forest, we also provide guided tours for as many people as possible to entertain and educate them personally. They take so much more home if you can talk to them in person, show details, and explain connections inside the rainforest. A follow-up information center shows the connection between the animals, the environment, and local people. From show to action. We sell fair trade products and Malagasy handicrafts in our shop. 2% of the turnover from the shop, as well as the restaurants, go to our project in the field, the Mazoala National Park. The visit ends with an exhibit dedicated to what you can do. In this special facility, we raise money, we tell visitors what they can do on their own to save rainforest, and we show them our projects in the field. We run specific programs for selected endangered animals and plants from Madagascar. The whole exhibit is designed to be a role model. We implemented for the exhibit sustainable techniques as wood chip heating, using fossil and nuclear-free energy, and have there become CO neutral. We offset our rest CO2 in our Madagascar project with a gold standard REDD certificates. And finally, we tell the visitor what we have done with their $6 million we have raised for the project since it has started. Masoala Park in Madagascar consists of the biggest chunk of rainforest left in Madagascar. So Zurich has started the project of twinning 20 years ago with Care International, followed 1997 by WCS and Madagascar National Parks. Today, we work additionally with some other local partners, mainly on the development side. We promote ecotourism. The publicity of the exhibit at Zurich has made the Swiss the largest number of visitors to Masoala National Park, a major income generating business for the local people there. So Zurich supports and implements research regarding biological issues, but also on themes like reforestation and development needs of the local population. Education is the long-term key to conservation in the region. We have built schools and helped the local communities to educate their children. One of the main activities is the instruction for sustainable farming, especially for rice. The goal is to reduce the pressure towards the forest by the destructive slash and burn technique. Nurseries for reforestation trees, as well as for cash crops, have been built in all the villages around Masoala National Park, and we reforest deforested areas. Other activities focus on working with local communities for micro projects and some infrastructure projects, like water dams and channels for rice paddies or pumps for fresh drinking water. One of the major problems in Madagascar is the lack of law enforcement, which has become worse since the tremendous increase in illegal logging and poaching of hardwood and exports towards Asia. But as a long-term player in Madagascar, our major achievement was the punishment of the company Gibson Guitars in the US for importing illegally cut rosewood and ebony due to the US Lacey Act 2012, because we could show that the wood was originally cut in the national park. Another project links the Asian elephants at Zurich to the last wild elephants in Kankrachan National Park in Thailand. The zoo holds a large group of regularly breeding elephants, which live in an indoor and outdoor landscape enclosure. The story told is the human-elephant conflict, and the enclosures are themed along this conflict in Thailand. Many themed elements help the visitor to get alerted by this story. In Thailand, about 200 wild elephants live still in the Kankrachan National Park, Thailand's largest and most diverse piece of continuous forest. With our conservation partner, Wildlife Conservation Society, we are supporting the animals and their habitat. On the one hand, we get involved in the neighboring villages for people and elephants to live peacefully side by side. Several factors are putting pressure on the elephant: destruction of rainforest, urban sprawl, and increasing areas used for agriculture rob the animals of their natural habitats. As a result, the elephants wander through settled areas, leading to conflicts with the farmers. The elephants cause great damage to plantations, to houses, or cattle in their paths, and illegal hunting for ivory is threatening the remaining population of elephants from the people there. We are trying to mitigate the conflicts with flare up between people and elephants by using separate spaces. Two kinds of fence, or you're seeing here, are used for this. For one, we make it possible to have fixed elephant-safe fences along the national park borders. This should drive the elephants to where they are surrounded by intact habitats with sufficient food and water. The farmer constructs the second fence around his field. You see them here. The fence is an alarm system. It doesn't keep the elephants going through. It's an alarm system. It exposes elephants which cross the national highway overnight and wreak damage in the fields with pineapples, bananas, mangoes, and other fine fruit. To intercept the intruders, the farmer sleeps in a guard hut by his field during harvest time. The alarm signal sounds as soon as the elephants stretch the wires surrounding the field. When the farmer is woken up, he then frightens the elephants away with firecrackers. Harvest and elephants remain intact. The method helped to reduce the crop damages in the last 10 years by 90%. You see a hut here above on the wild, and to the right where people can look out if animals are arriving. The Conservación National Park itself enjoys full protection under Thai law. Despite that, illegal logging, poaching, and hunting for ivory are a daily threat. Various armed rangers teams are on patrol on rough land to uncover violations and to convict criminals. The training and equipment for the rangers, which we have focused on since the beginning of the project, are now also used in other conservation areas. Thanks to their presence, the patrolling teams reduce attacks on tigers, pangolins, langurs, and other endangered species. For example, a clear increase in the tiger population is evident in one of our partner projects since the patrols were professionalized, and 2020 was the first year with not one poached elephant or tiger in the park. In the next project, I want to show you it is on amphibian survival. The diversity of amphibians in Colombia is overwhelming. Over 700 species are known, and 214 of them are classified as endangered. Colombia has the largest concentration of endangered amphibian species worldwide. A skin fungus that is fatal to frogs and toads is spreading at a rapid pace worldwide, the so-called chytric fungus. So Zurich is making it possible for the first time in Colombia to examine the population sizes of endangered frog species using scientific methods. This review of 71 species in 5 national parks, and thus a third of the species of frogs classified as endangered in Colombia, will provide a better understanding of to what extent they are under threat. In this picture, you see from a while ago how this chytrid fungus was spreading through Middle America from one year to the other. A total of 1/3 of all endangered frog species in Colombia live in these 5 national parks where the researchers work. Unfortunately, it is currently proving impossible to stop the spread of the chytrid fungus or to treat sick amphibians in the wild. It survives in small rivers and wet places. Therefore, the conservation of endangered species of frogs in human care has high priority, with the aim being to return them to the wild in the future. In close cooperation with the Wildlife Conservation Society in Colombia, with Cali Zoo and the Corporación Universitaria La Salista de Medellín, information regarding the prevalence and status of them in 5 of the most important Colombian national parks for amphibian diversity is being gathered. Based on this data, the decision is taken as to which frog species must be transferred to the amphibian breeding center at Cali Zoo as a priority for them to be preserved. Here, they can be bred in an environment protected from the chytrid fungus in the breeding station planned and financed by Zurich. Should one of these species die out in nature, The original habitat could be repopulated with offspring from the Noah's Ark for amphibians after the chytric fungal infection has subsided and the animals immune. In the wild, the golden poison frog, here to the right, has a very small natural distribution area in the tropical lowland rainforest in the Saya River in Cauca department in Colombia. Its habitat has been shrinking significantly in the recent years due to deforestation, which it was recently classified as endangered on the red list of endangered species. The golden poison frog is one of the most familiar species of these poisonous frogs because it is considered as the most toxic vertebrate in the world. It produces very strong venom through its skin that protects it from the predators. In ancient times, South American Indians used the venom of the frogs to prepare the arrows of their blowpipes for hunting birds and small monkeys. At Zurich, we breed the golden poison frog beside some other amphibians and tell the story of the fungus and vanishing amphibians in a fascinating interactive exhibition to the public. The last example of zoo involvement I want to show you is a project you might especially be interested in. So Zurich accommodates the Swiss headquarters of the Antarctic Research Trust. The research trust is called ART, shortened ART. ART is a research organization that is committed to the long-term protection of penguins, albatrosses, and their habitats in the Antarctic. With self-developed GPS recorders, which are attached to the animal feathers, the ART conducts research into the penguins' previously unknown migration behavior. This provides more insight into where the animals go in search of food, how deep they dive, and what they eat. With this data, ART is committed to protecting the region and fish stocks that are important to the penguins. ART conducts research in the field together with partners such as the British Antarctic Survey and the University of Andrés Bello here in Chile. To date, over 30 articles have been published in specialist journals. The data obtained is of great importance for the creation of marine reserves and action plans in the event, especially of an oil spill. In addition, the ART bought 4 unspoiled islands in the south of the Falkland Islands and designated them a strict nature reserve. On a 5th island, you see it here, Hummock Island, so Zurich provided support for the construction of a research station here to the right, and reforested, that's a little bit hard to see, the young plants, the isle with tussock grass. In the last years, zoos have changed their focus from simply showing animals towards conservation centers, which integrate conservation messages into the public interest in animals and to motivate them to support conservation. The amount of in situ conservation we were able to do in the last years is a sign that the zoo has achieved its aim to become a conservation center and can really make a difference to the cause. And it all started with a quote of Babadium you see here on the top, which is well that what I see that a zoo can do, we can teach people, and we can teach people, they start loving the animals, and that's actually the basis for a longer conservation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rubel. It was really a pleasure to have you like an opening speaker of this series of a conference of conservation and veterinarian of the future. Very impressive. I've been in so many zoos and rescue centers, and this is unbelievable. Then during your time to be the director of this zoo in Zurich, you can create this facility. And I agree with you, of course, 100% about the zoo are the key for conservation in the planet with experience in the field, especially when you need to protect a species. Thank you so much. And Victor wants to say something too.
Thank you very much.
Sí, bueno, doctor Alex, encantado. Ya. ¿Perdón?
Está bien, Víctor.
No, está bien. No, yo solo quería felicitar al doctor porque la verdad que nos ha dado una visión panorámica extraordinaria desde aspectos muy generales como los zoológicos, donde de la extinción pasan a la conservación, pero algo muy importante para nosotros es que usted ha manejado el concepto de una salud en forma integral, ¿sí? Que es un concepto que nosotros hemos manejado como carrera en medicina veterinaria. ¿Por qué digo esto? Porque usted ha relacionado un conjunto de enfermedades que tienen que ver con estos carenciales como el selenio. Nosotros en Chile también tenemos problemas de selenio en nuestros animales, la enfermedad del músculo blanco, lo llamamos, enfermedades carenciales, nutricionales, pero también enfermedades zoonóticas, ¿ah? Como el COVID, el VIH, donde la verdad que el hombre y los animales se integran y de alguna manera se afectan. Y finalmente decirle de que me ha gustado mucho la mirada hacia el aspecto genético, los aspectos de conservación, los programas de conservación que están llevando a cabo, y el rol de la educación, que lo considero fundamental. Resumiendo, usted nos dio un paseo muy interesante, una mirada muy amplia, no solo sobre la conservación, sino que la salud, la genética, la educación, y su programa, su charla, la hemos grabado y la vamos a poner a disposición, ¿cierto?, de mucha gente, dado lo interesante que ha sido. La vamos a poner en nuestro YouTube para poder compartirla, obviamente si usted nos autoriza. Así que gracias una vez más. Muchas gracias, y yo quiero que Mariela nos apoye un poco con el tema de consultas, comentarios. Mariela, por favor.
Ich weiß nicht, ob du eine Übersetzung hast von seinen Kommentaren, Alex.
Sorry, I didn't understand you. It was not loud.
Not sure if you had a translation of Victor's comments.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. No, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. You know, I dearly love Zurich Zoo, and it's really amazing what you managed to do over the past few years. There are a lot of comments in the chat congratulating you on this excellent presentation and the inspiring talk. If there are any questions by somebody, si alguien tiene preguntas, por favor, pónganlas en el chat que se las podemos transmitir al Dr. Rübel.
Okay, mientras hacen las preguntas, yo voy a hacer una pregunta al Dr. Rübel para darles tiempo para poder tipear la pregunta. Dr. Rübel, ¿cómo es la interacción entre los animales exóticos que están en el zoológico en Zurich y los animales locales, la fauna urbana que llega al zoológico?
Yes, we have some animals who come to the zoo, like the white stork. They still travel to Africa, and they come back every spring. We have a lot of local animals which enjoy the zoo because it's a lot of different habitats in the zoo. There is dry places, there is wet places, so a lot of birds are coming in. That's relating to the wild animals. To local animals, we actually try to keep a little bit of distance to farm animals, just to make sure that there never will be a transition from any disease to each other. Even we have a very excellent quarantine. Everybody has to go through who comes in the zoo. Yeah, also every animal has to go in zoo, but towards the farm animals, we are quite careful that we don't bring them in, and we don't let other pet animals into the zoo to keep this really different, and to keep our animals safe from as much as we can from introduced diseases.
That means the zoo and that quality of zoo and the care of the animals of the zoo in Zurich is presenting another spot for the migratory birds. Then they need to travel to in Europe or far away.
Yeah, we are not so big, but at least for the white stork, and yeah, we have 3 different iguanas at the zoo, it's the only place in the whole town. We are still in the town, and it's the only place where they live because they like the environment there. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
So we have 2 questions here in the chat, one by Sofia Leiva. How would it be possible to start working in the area of zoos and conservation? What recommendations do you have for the students?
I think they should be very flexible to start wherever there is a possibility. It's not as easy to get into this field. It's not as easy, but if you're flexible, if you're ready to go to wild places and do not as easy work, yeah, with a lot of flexibility, everything, and a lot of initiative, there is ways to get into the field. But it's not a very lucrative field. It's sometimes hard, and there's a lot of competition. But if somebody is really motivated, I think he will achieve. Yeah, he or she. Yeah.
The Mindy Camponetti
Yes,
asks, do you think that students of veterinary medicine can learn from studying the effects of unbalanced habitat on the health of wild animals to understand better the problems of health in domestic animals?
Yes, I think so. Actually, I'm involved not with the zoo, but involved here in a study in cows, and the study actually tries to see if there is possibilities to reduce antibiotics in the milk production. Antibiotics in the health of the of the cow. And it shows actually that if you keep them more natural, that they stay more healthy and you don't need as many antibiotics. So that's a problem you see also in between the wild and the domestic animals. Even the other domestic, sometimes it's they get healthier when they live more natural. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Bruno Silvetti, hi doctor, I was wondering, is there any particular educational approach the zoo has implemented that has been proven to be more efficient in the population, especially children?
Yes, we were part of a study where we tried to see if there is an effect of the zoo regarding conservation. It was a statistically relevant effect. Not very big, but at least statistically relevant. And also, it's not just the education in our zoo, which is actually the main priority we do. We try to educate and show everything around conservation and nature. But we also have seen that in the field. You know, we have seen that if people don't understand and don't know what happened to their environment, then they have no intent to conserve it. So it's very, very important. I see education as the basis of conservation wherever it is.
Great, thank you. Ale is asking, here we have Catalina Fuentes about the project with the penguins in Antarctica. Does it expose them to predators?
Not that they have to, the question is because they get a transmitter, you know, that's the question is if they're more exposed because they carry a transmitter. But it's not seen any effect of that. Of course, there are some are exposed to predators, of course, like they all usually are. But no, there was no seen a significant effect that they would have been more captured by predators.
Great, and one related to the pandemic, because Zurich also was closed during the pandemic. And Ale asks if you had to increase environmental enrichment at the zoo due to the absence of visitors.
No, we have quite a lot of enrichment in our animals, so they have something to do. But we have seen, especially in the great apes, you know, they were really waiting till the people came back. You know, when something happened, even the keeper or some cleaning, they came to see very close. So they missed the visitors to some extent. But that's very few animals. Most of the animals didn't have there was not a big effect. Yeah. But we researched that, and I think there is actually a bigger study going on in the zoos to see what the effect is when visitors have left and when they come back, to see if there is a bigger difference. Yeah,
that would be interesting to know.
Yeah.
Great. Andrea Caiozzi, who you probably know, asks, which activities do you think should be the priority to carry out for medicine conservation in Chile? And that based in your experience collaborating with projects in Chile and other countries in Latin America.
I think the important thing is that you focus on your own, actually focused on your own environment, which is in Chile, of course, you'll be close to Antarctica, and the sea albatrosses, penguins, all that. But then also you have some really rare animals, like the huemul, you know, which needs a reserve to survive. Yeah. So I think there's a need of having parks or reserves for some of the endangered species, which are large enough that they really can survive.
Dr. Rubel, thank you so much. I know the time is run and we don't have more time for the talk today. Maybe we can invite you again soon. Probably you're gonna say yes, but it was very, very interesting. It's so many young people, especially, then they want to learn from the experts, from the good experience of zoos, the new zoos, then thinking about conservation like a priority, not only for the animals that you have at Zurich, but for the animals that you can help in nature. From FIA and from university, it was an honor to have you today, this morning. This is spectacular Saturday morning. And just to say thank you enough, you know, it's no word to put it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Sí, solo para terminar, doctor Rudel, muchas gracias nuevamente. Muchas gracias nuevamente. Y la verdad que para todos los que nos han acompañado hoy día, agradecerle la presencia y decirle que nos esperamos en mayo. Vamos a tener una gran presentación también con el profesor Cristian Bonasich, que va a hablar sobre el tema hacia un servicio animal para Chile. Así que tenemos un lindo desafío. Gracias por habernos acompañado. Un gusto tenerlo, doctor Rubio, con nosotros. Gracias, Cristian. Gracias, Mariela. Gracias a todos nuestros estudiantes y amigos que nos han acompañado.
Merci vielmals,
Un
Alex.
abrazo y nos vemos. Chao.
Danke vielmals, Alex.
Ciao, and all the best to all my friends here. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Agradecer a todos los que estuvieron en la charla. Espero que se den cuenta de que queremos hacer estos días sábados cada vez más interesantes para ustedes. En el fondo, la única forma de proteger especies en la naturaleza es aprendiendo y después de aprender, tomar acciones concretas. Así que agradecerles a todos por su presencia en el nombre de la Universidad, de la Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile y de FIA, Foundation for International Aid to Animals, de que hayan participado hoy. Gracias a todos los que promovieron esta charla, Latin Vet, AMBFAS, ñancu, Fundación ñancu, Armadillos de Chile, por todos los aportes que han sido en la difusión de estas charlas. Gracias.